Right, let's talk about Italy beating Belgium 2-1 tonight. Fully deserved. The best game of the tournament for me so far in the Euros. What a display of football quality. And Italy were a cut above in the end. There was a period of time, they obviously get the two goals. Insigne scores an absolute worldie, in my opinion. Barella as well, the way that he takes his goal. And Italy come out in the second half, and this was the real poignant point for me, and they just start playing and they start moving the ball around and they push Jorginho high and they try and invite Belgium to win the ball. And they're so aggressive, Italy, in their possession-based style of play that they're almost baiting Belgium to come and try and win the ball off them. And to be fair, I've written it in my notes, I thought Belgium all night in that midfield struggled. They couldn't get the ball off Italy. Axel Witzel's a fantastic defensive midfielder and a real solid possession-based football player. Yuri Tielemans is exactly the same. Tielemans probably more a number six, a low-lying playmaker, but they couldn't compete with that aggressive midfield. Jorginho, Verratti, Barella. In particular, Barella, for me, I saw the quality that people speak about tonight, really. Industrious, working hard, winning the ball, good vision, can get in the box, makes the runs, creates the overload. That's, for me, where this game was won by Italy. It was the overloads, the consistent overloads in that midfield. And it was baiting Belgium out to try and do something. I think Mancini clearly did his homework on this Belgium side. Speak about the Belgian back three aging. Now, I looked at them at points tonight and I thought defensively, as players, Vermaelen, Vertonghen and Alderweireld aren't bad defenders. They've never been bad defenders. They've always been solid technical centre-backs. The issue tonight, and I think where Mancini really targeted it, and I thought you saw that a little bit with the choice of Chiesa over Berardi in terms of a direct threat down that right-hand side and sometimes moving to the left, was that these centre-backs aren't willing to engage. And if Italy can overload and bypass that Belgian midfield, those centre-backs will not engage. And for me, as good as Insigne's goal was, and as much as you can't take credit away from Insigne, who I thought really grew into the game, and again, like Barella, started to see a lot of his qualities, no one engaged. No one closed him down. He had the space to take the shot. And I think that's where Mancini has clearly done his homework. You look at using Spinazzola in the way that he uses him, on that left-hand side, getting forward, creating width, creating the overlaps. It really stretched Belgium. I felt that their wing-backs defensively, I don't think Hazard or Meunier are good enough. They're good going forward. And Belgium couldn't impose their game plan. They couldn't get hold of the ball long enough to push that high line up, to push their wing-backs really wide and high, and then enable them to work in those areas in De Bruyne, Doku and Lukaku to get service into the box. And that's where, again, Belgium failed tonight, not recovering the ball and the lack of service into Lukaku. Now, De Bruyne tried. He tried. I think it was quite difficult for him tonight. For me, that this Belgium side, with the lack of ball that they had, it all came down to the creativity of Doku and De Bruyne. And I thought Doku was a real shining light for Belgium. His end product wasn't necessarily there. I'm really impressed with him, by the way, in terms of his ability to beat players. I think he completed 8 successful dribbles over the 90 minutes, which is a lot. He's come in for Eden Hazard. And it made me think why Eden Hazard, despite how a brilliant player he has been, why Doku wasn't looked at, because of the dynamism that he has. And he wins the penalty. Now, I'm sure a couple of you might be sitting at the screen saying, that's not a penalty, it's soft. The reason why I think it is a penalty is because Di Lorenzo, Doku's got past him, and the minute he's got past him, rather than Di Lorenzo trying to stand him up, force him as wide as possible and make that delivery really difficult for him, he's effectively shoved him because he knows he's gone past him. The minute he makes contact with him, and it is relatively strong contact for what it is, then I think that the referee's within his rights to give the pen. But it didn't matter in the end. It was only down to those bright moments. And going back to Kevin De Bruyne, for 10 minutes, I could see Belgium's game plan. Wide centre-back, stretching it. Italy couldn't really press in the way that they wanted to. I think Italy really thrive off being able to press in packs, sort of really decomposing narrow sides, winning the ball back, recovering, and then hitting teams. And that's really where that first goal come from. Vertonghen has made a mistake, in my opinion. I know they want to play out from the back and they are a possession-based style of football, and that really is what Roberto Martinez is trying to cultivate, or has tried to cultivate. I think it'll be gone, to be honest, after tonight. the time that he's had and the lack of relative success that they've had. And Vertonghen playing the ball straight back to Italy, aggressive in the press, right in the centre of the final third. And then from then on, we speak about the fear of some of these Belgium, centre backs in terms of pace and not being able to deal with dynamism. And the minute that Barella shifts it onto his right foot, and you can see Thorgan Hazard behind him, not willing to engage, again, a game over. And that's where I think Italy got the confidence. Italy are the most impressive side in this competition for me. Even as an Englishman, and I'm biased, Italy are the best side to watch. They play the most attractive football. They're defensively resolute. I've written on my notes as well to note that Bonucci tonight I thought was fantastic. His passing range, I've never given him credit for that. And I think it's because we're used to seeing Italy over the course of a few years. Chiellini, Bonucci, Barzagli, he's played in the Euros prior. All really solid, centre-backs that have played in a back three. But Bonucci can play in a high line. Yes, he got very lucky at one stage. It shouldn't have been a foul in the middle of the park. And I think Belgium are crying for a transition to work into, because that's really where De Bruyne and Lukaku were going to operate when they had space and they had time to get on the ball. But Bonucci's passing range, in particular, over trying to switch the ball, trying to play it into the striker Immobile. Immobile actually had a poor game tonight, but the variability of this entire Italian team is what is an absolute nightmare for other teams to try and deal with. Martinez is a very principled manager in what he wants to achieve. He was like that at Wigan and he has been like that at Belgium. And that stubbornness has hurt him, because Mancini is very unique, I think, in international football. And you see that in the tempo that they're playing, but very unique in how many different forms of play that Italy can demonstrate across the 90 minutes. If they want to be defensive, they can be. If they want to play inverted wingers and allow the forwards to come central, they can do. They can use Immobile as a hold-up man. They can get Jorginho to sit a bit deeper. They can push Jorginho up. This team is so tactically well-drilled and intelligent that it's an absolute nightmare for an opposition side that can't deal with it or can't adapt that game plan. And that's where I feel that Belgium really let themselves down. I think if Belgium had been able to just add or had another midfielder, a centre midfielder, to compete with that Italian midfield that's so hard to get the ball off naturally, when you're giving them an extra man in Jorginho, Verratti and Barella, how good they are on the ball, it's going to be a long night. And that's been proven. Italy didn't even need Chiesa to be on red hot form, Immobile to be on red hot form. They just needed to control the game enough and to have those moments. And when they did, it was plain sailing. I think the minute they come out that second half, I don't think Italy were really interested in getting a third. If I'm honest, I know they were threatened a little bit, but they were toying with Belgium. They were baiting them into a mistake, and they were never going to do that because they were always fearful of what could happen. So I think credit to Italy. That was the best game I've seen in the Euros so far, tactically, and how they've impressed me with their passing and the tempo, to be fair, to both Italy and Belgium for a large period of that game, deserves absolutely to be applauded. The Italy-Spain game, I think Italy really do Spain. I think they really hurt them. And Spain may have a fair bit of joy in terms of counter-press. That's something that I think Italy struggle with. If you can pack the middle of the park, I think they'll match them up 3v3. They'll try and counter-press them. I feel that maybe Italy's midfield is slightly more mobile. And you look at Sergio Busquets, Pedri's probably the most mobile out of that midfield three. Koke can get around a little bit. But the way that Jorginho, Barella and Verratti can impose himself on the game and get on the ball, that's a real test. But I just feel defensively, Spain have been so poor that I'm not sure that they'll be able to deal with the overloads in the final third. And I can see them getting a goal from a set piece. I can see them hurting them. I can see them being relatively comfortable because Spain aren't clinical enough. So that's credit to Italy. As for Belgium and their golden generation, that is the end, isn't it? That really is the end. And it's a shame that I suppose they've never really been able to capitalise that. And as an Englishman, as an England fan, I know having a golden generation and not being able to capitalise in it. And I guess in principle, the decision to bring in Roberto Martinez and play an attractive style of football, you can get fully behind. But I think there is still defensive naivety in there. I think they've missed the trick. I don't think it's over for Belgium. It's over for Belgium at the level that I think they've been competing at. I think because of the close proximity of the World Cup, it's only 18 months away. they will still have Lukaku. They still will have De Bruyne for me for another tournament. The centre-backs, they'll need to be a fair bit of rotation, in my opinion. And they still have some relatively good young players. You know, Thorgan Hazard, as we've mentioned. Doku's a real shining light. So they have players, but, you know, as after the World Cup, really and truthfully, and after this, there will be a slight transition phase that I think they'll have to get into. So I'll be interested to keep my eye on that from an international perspective regarding what Belgium do with their side and how they look to reinvent himself in the future. Credit to Italy, credit to Insigne, credit to Roberto Mancini. You know, he's a fantastic manager, and it's really cool to see. It's really cool to see Mancini and Luis Enrique coming up against each other. These are two managers that have won a lot. You know, we know Mancini's won league titles in England, in Italy. You know, Luis Enrique's won the Champions League. He's won the La Liga. So this is going to be such a good tactical match between the two. And I think it will just come down to frailties with Spain. But tactically, in the middle of the park, I'm super intrigued to see how it goes. So that's my review on Italy 2, Belgium 1. Let me know in the comment section what you think about the game. Do you think that it's over for Belgium, really and truthfully, now for, you know, until the next generation comes through? Do you think Italy have really cemented themselves as favourites? I'd like to sit here and say England are now, given the situation, but I think Italy is the sternest test that England could face. And I think in an Italian-England final would be fascinating. It would be fascinating. The team that's so fantastic on the ball and the team that's really solid and aggressive off the ball, who can get the better of who. So that's me dreaming, because I hope England actually get to the final. We've got to get past Ukraine first, so you can't write them off. Take care, everybody. If you do enjoy this video and you are enjoying the content, make sure you drop a like on the video. Let me know if it's something that you are enjoying. Drop a comment, naturally, to let me know your thoughts on that game. And until next time, everybody, take care.